So, good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us in this quite early hour. I really do appreciate it in the name of all the panelists here. My name is Dávid and I'll be your moderator for the forthcoming 60 minutes. And we'll talk about, as some sort of a brief introduction to the Hungarian market and the contemporary scene of the Hungarian music itself. But for the very first point, I'd like to introduce you, the panelists here. So if I can ask you just please have some sort of a short introduction about who are you and what are you doing.
Hi everyone, I'm Ákos, as you can see here. I'm marketing director for Sziget Festival in Budapest.
This is kind of short. Okay, hello, my name is András. I'm coming from the city of Debrecen, which is in the eastern part of Hungary. We're doing a festival there called Campus Festival. I'm responsible for booking and promotion and program concept. Also doing some promoter work for some local venues. Also founder of the So Far Sounds Debrecen series. So I'm dealing with this and pass the words to Sasa.
Hi, so yeah, it's not very easy to read my name for a foreign person, so let's stay with Sasa, that's my name. And in the same time I'm doing various kind of jobs, which is I'm a musician, singer, songwriter. I'm booking a 4,000 capacity festival. I'm managing 3 amazing bands. 2 of them just played last night, Platon Karatev and Middle Misred. We had some good fun afterwards, and then I just became the promoter of one of Budapest's most respected venue called Aquarium. So maybe that's all.
I'm Péter, Tóth. I'm working for Artisjus. Actually, I've been working there for 19 years now. That's the local collective management society for music rights for authors. And I'm a head of transformation there by now.
And as I introduced myself, my name is Dávid, and I'm responsible for the Hungarian Music Export Office, HOTS, or Hungarian Oncoming tunes. And as a brief start, I would like to ask Péter to do a short presentation about the basic facts as an introduction, and then we will have a quick discussion about basically the current state of Hungarian music itself, because as you can see from the panelists, we have a quite diverse range of activities and the sectors. And on the second half, we will talk about mostly basically the market itself, on club level, festival level, to give you some sort of a short introduction about who should you meet, which are the key festivals, key events, the trendsetter ones, and we hope you will enjoy the forthcoming minutes.
Okay, so we have, together with other collecting societies in Hungary, we have an umbrella organization called ProArt, and we are issuing a music industry report, I would say every second year. I try to gather facts that characterize the Hungarian market, probably those which are a bit different from the Western European scene, so which are mostly characterizing Hungarian or the Eastern Central European music markets. So first of all, if you want to divide the music industry into 2 big parts, I would say the first big part is the live music industry, and the other big part is the sound recording industry. Here you can see the value of the Hungarian music industry. As you see, the live part takes up about twice as big part as the sound recording part of the industry. So let's start with live music then. I think that probably the most important thing is how often do actually people go to concerts and what kind of concerts do they go to. And I would say that in this regard, Eastern Europe, Central and Eastern Europe has quite a difficult situation because, well, to go to a concert takes a lot of time and money, and probably people don't really have that. So if you look at this chart here, it shows that how many percent, what is the percentage of people actually going to different types of concerts. And the first 3 in the top list are actually concerts which are free of charge. So it means that people tend to go to free concerts and probably not paying that much for the entry fee. I will have a chart soon about that a bit more in details. So this is the number of concerts per month, in 2017. Of course, it shows that summer months are the most active months. You can see the approximate number of shows in Hungary. That's data coming from Artisjus, so this is licensing data for all of these concerts. And this is the other chart that I mentioned to you, how much people actually go to free entry concerts or concerts with an entry fee. So you can see that the income of the musicians and the income of this industry is coming mainly from free concerts. And if you can see on the right side, the smaller the city or the village is, the more probably is that there will be only free concerts, while in Budapest the bigger part of the concerts are actually concerts where you have to buy a ticket to go into the concert. Okay, so that's for the live part. Let's go to the sound recording industry part. Actually, this is a very typical chart that shows that the income for sound recording uses is coming from collective management. So the big green part is the income from collective management societies for authors, for performers, and also for sound recording producers. And actually the red one down there is the sale of physical copies, and the blue one is the sale through digital channels. So whenever you actually publish a sound recording, the income will definitely not come directly from the market, but mainly from the collective management societies. Of course, this is not only used as selling the CDs, but also playing in the radios and TVs and so on. But all kinds of uses of sound recordings. So it's about, I would say, 85% of the total income comes from the collective management. It's also probably a very typical chart. Who pays for actually creating a sound recording? It's about a survey that we made among the musicians themselves, and it says that about 62% of the cases the musicians themselves are sponsoring their own sound recording. So their income is coming from we will see where, and they put the money into creating the sound recordings. And what is interesting, I think, currently is that actually the labels put this small amount into creating the sound recordings, and by now the state fund has already grown quite a lot in the recent few years. So I would say almost matches the funding that's coming from record labels, which is, I would say, remarkable. Okay, so another chart which might be a bit difficult to understand at first, but the question was to a wide audience, what is the main channel for you to listen to music? And we made a comparison between a 2016 and between a 2018 survey, so this is why it's a bit difficult to understand, but probably you can see the numbers there. And it shows that by now the main channel to listen to music is YouTube. Okay, so the blue one is the first mention, and the green one is the second mention when asked. So it, as we can see, it is already bypassing radio. And I would say that it's quite clear that online is growing, but currently it's almost only YouTube. And you can see the streams down there. It's still very low. I would say that around 100,000 people are actually subscribing to streaming services in Hungary currently. But it's growing.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah.
What age did you ask?
It was a representative survey for the whole country, but it was an online survey, so it's a bit over-representing probably younger and mainly living in the cities. But well, by now everyone uses the internet, even in the villages, so it's almost totally representative. So the last part is about the musicians. How many are there, and from what are they making a living? So this is a chart that shows the number of musicians in the total population, and we were just wondering. We made this survey, so we were wondering how many actually learned to play the music, are still playing music, and going closer and closer to the actual artists that are getting paid for playing music, which is a very small number, of course, but I think that it is a very important chart to see that playing music has a bigger role in the society, and to see that actually how difficult it is to, to get into that very small part of the musicians who actually get paid for the music. Where does the money come from to a musician? As you can see, the chart is very colorful, which means that a musician has to make a living on separate sources and lots of sources. But I would say that 50% of the money is coming from actual fees for playing live performances. Another 25% is coming from collective management societies, mainly from Artisjus as authors royalties, but also the performer society is becoming stronger. And the rest, the other 25%, is very much mixed, coming from teaching, CD sales, online uses, state support, merchandising. Everything is there in the last 25% here. Which also means that probably the collective management societies play a bigger role in the actual living of a musician than probably in the West. And the final chart here is that this report, this music industry report, identified 4 main trends in the Hungarian market right now. The first one is that actually we see a quite active professional self-reorganization of the industry. We have just created a Music Hungary Alliance, so the alliance of the industry. We have the export office, HOTS. We have a quite good showcase festival called Bush. Also the world music scene is flourishing with the Budapest Ritmo event. We Artisjus have created an event called DEX. It's a songwriting expo, so it's a conference in 2 days that is focusing on songwriting. And this is not just a local event, this is a regional event. So this reorganization of the industry has started. The other interesting main trend is that the festival market is becoming even stronger. Probably the most important part was that actually the biggest company that is working on this industry is the Sziget group. Was actually bought by a private equity fund last year, so it's staying there, but it's changing a lot. Then the third main trend is that there are constant changes in the radio and television broadcasting market. I wouldn't really say too much about that because it's very much political driven, and we don't want to talk about it too much. Well. Probably in the kitchen or at home, but not in conference rooms. And the fourth main trend is that the digital segment is slowly catching up. We are still lagging behind, but it's coming very strongly. So that was kind of introducing to this market.
But as a brief start, may I kindly ask you to go back to the 7th picture that you showed us? That one, yeah. Mm-hmm. Because if possible, I would like to use this one as a narrative for an introduction, because from the export angle, I would like to say that we're also realizing that even if there's some sort of a pattern where you can see that even if you're coming from a Central Eastern or more like an Eastern European market, at the same time there's a younger generation right now in the musicians who are using music for self-expression. And the reason why I wanted to see and show this one as well, that the vast majority of those Hungarian young and talented acts who got invited to showcase events, or basically who has some sort of an export potential to fill in those missing puzzles that we have a lack of, I would say, in our infrastructure. At the same time, they are the ones who are still not earning that money, but they use the money they produce for self-expression. And that's the way how they can find their way. But even if I just say that, I wanted to ask you your opinion about that, because you're in the industry. What do you think about that? Is there a generation change in the musicians?
Yes, I think from what I've seen in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, I think there's definitely a change in in what you've mentioned, that there's a younger generation that is very conscious, very actively planning on building their awareness and their activities, or next to writing music, but like really working on how to position themselves inside the country, outside of the country. Also, I think the industry around it grew a lot in this sense. Just when you sent over what we're going to talk about, I had an interesting thought I just had a couple of weeks ago. I've been to one of the bigger outdoor venues in Hungary to see a show of two, let's say, up-and-coming bands. One of, they play showcases regularly, and they had a show there with a couple of thousand people, and visuals were, I think, pretty incredible. And then the next day, for some reason, Facebook showed me a video from like 10 years ago of one of the biggest Hungarian bands playing on one of the biggest clubs in Budapest, and the difference was overwhelming. It was basically guys in sweaty wife beaters with no visuals at all, although at that time that was like one of the biggest bands in Hungary, and now we're talking about up-and-coming bands that are still not really earning the money to be able to make a living, but really think it's important to think about the whole production rather than just making a quick buck of it.
In my mind, there are, I think, three basic statements which more or less characterize the current situation in Hungary. One of them is a clearly seen development, and this development is not only in this generation change, what you have mentioned, but for me it's a very important thing that the scene itself and the profession behind this scene has become much more professional in the last 5 to 10 years. So the background is much more conscious now. There are much more educated, developed people working in the industry from the young generation. There are schools now where you can learn music management. Much more bands have a kind of a starting management background in Hungary. And if I take a quick snapshot from the 90s, right after the change of the communist system, the whole Hungary was like a bit of in this white capitalism, and this was also true for the music industry then. And now it's much more similar to a well-working system, which is good. And I think this is a very, very forward-looking thing. So this is very promising. But still we face lots of challenges, and my second statement is about a very, very centralized country where Budapest is 10 times bigger than the next city. And all the cities, all the clubs, all the venues, all the music scene of the countryside are facing still very, very strong challenges. And I think the most important thing in this case that, for example, a venue outside Budapest giving space to so-called underground bands now couldn't survive without the state funding. Fortunately, now we have this system of the hangfoglaló music support system. And for example, the venue which I book concerts for is earning like 12,000 euros per year to spend on giving stage to young bands. But if something happened to this in the future, I think we should close the doors. So we couldn't go on with this thing because 80-90% of these club shows wouldn't reach at least a level of break-even without this support. In this current situation, we are able to pay at least the travel costs to the young bands, and this helps a lot to keep the scene alive in the cities outside Budapest. And there was one other thing, but maybe I will get back to it later.
Can I add something? I completely agree with you. I mean, I have a little bit experience in Hungarian evolution. I was involved in Face No More in the Remetei-Filep in '96 when they first came to Hungary, and when you do shows right now, it's a completely different pictures, of course. speaking about the money, on the one hand, you know, you have the state which is subsidizing pretty heavily. On the other hand, you have a 27% VAT on the tickets. So this is the biggest problem for us actually in reality, because when we want to bring acts to Hungary, most of the time we get a no just because you cannot afford it. So it's very strange for us to hear that you get subsidized with 12,000 euros, which you get directly, and on the other hand you have a VAT which is the highest in all of Europe. So I think the way how, and I try to speak with several colleagues of you, and I think it's very important to put, I guess this is a subject for you too, which you discuss very frequently. When Sziget doesn't pay 27 as 5, I know. But this is the real difficulty, you know. So you have a very interesting scene, you have a lot of professional people, you have very good clubs also behind, besides Budapest, but this 27% is a killer.
Yeah.
And it's not only killer for small ones, it's for the big acts the same thing, you know. So we should really try to put some pressure on that point.
Yeah, but at the same time, if I can quote Hemingway, it's also grace under pressure, because at the same time as we're adapting to the rules and basically we are adapting to the game that we're all playing about surviving, at the same time all the infrastructure and the key players and the management and the artists are start to do their jobs better and also to make decisions more wisely. And later on I also wanted to ask about basically talent investment. Maybe we can already jump into that one, because as I'm sitting next to promoters and festivals, maybe that could be interesting for you as foreign people, as how can you enter the Hungarian market. So maybe we can jump into that question and we will continue on later if it's okay for you.
I mean, for example, from my perspective, the festival I'm booking, Bánkitó Festival, is it's quite like I would say a trendsetter even, because the bands who usually play at our festival and we put them on main stage are bands who's never really played main stages before, and we give chance to small bands. And like you have to know that the audience of the festival is like 90% is coming from the city center of Budapest, and I also give chance to foreign bands when I go to Showcase Festival. And if I see a good band, I was walking around with Ákos at Eurosonic, and we just saw a German band called Jungstötter, if anyone knows them from here. And yeah, we've been here in Vienna as well to check them out at the theater. They were very good. And after the gig, I just went there. That they're so good. I really want to have them to come over Hungary and play a show at our festival. Because what you have to know that the audience who comes to our festival, they're very open-minded people, always kind of looking for the new. And that's a very good experience for the bands who play at our festival. If they play at a good slot at Bánkitó Festival, then the next year for them, I think it's going to be easier to bring more and more people to a club show. So I would say that this is a good question for me, because I really want to take care of talents and like give them opportunity. And yeah, for example, there was the band called Rendezvous, who I just saw at Midam Festival, and there were only 6 people on the beach, and they've been playing post-punk on the sun, but like I really felt like they're so good. And I just went there and I invited them to our festival, and I just put them right on the main stage. And then I asked Dávid that they played at the main stage of Bánkitó Festival, which means that if they're playing good, then the audience will stuck with them. And I just asked Dávid that, is there any chance we can book them to 838? And the first ever club show in Hungary, there are like 350 people come to see them, and mainly because they got a good promotion at Bánkitó Festival. So yeah, I mean, I'm always kind of looking for the new and trying to give chance to small bands on good stages and good slots.
I think you are the exception. I mean, yeah. So this is a good point to give my first statement concerning this talent discovery or talent development. Which is, I think, facing one of the biggest issues. I never want to blame the audience for being not open enough, but I think we are coming from a kind of a handicap, or I don't know. So the current situation in my mind is that the musical socialization of Hungarian people is underdeveloped if you compare it to the European average. This comes from the very low quality of music education in the common educational system, which is very boring for children, which is still starting with the Gregorian and lots of other genres which are not really. So it's not really up to make them being involved into the world of music. And of course, we could list lots of facts, lots of factors, the media, the mainstream radio stations, and so on and so on. So it's a very big challenge to open the eyes, to open the mind of youngsters for new and fresh music, for music which is out of the comfort zone, for music which is taking a bit of a risk on their shoulder. So the general way of going to concerts, as Péter has already mentioned, is to go to free concerts where people can watch and have fun on the music of bands who are generally known in the mainstream. And discovering fresh things like an unknown band from Germany or anywhere else is always something like stepping out of this comfort zone. And in Hungary, I think a very low % of people are open generally to this. And this is, I think, one of our biggest tasks now is to move them off. And for example, in my situation in Debrecen, we are doing Campus Festival, which is a quite big, in a Hungarian scale, is a big mainstream festival, putting 95% of big Hungarian bands on the stages. Fortunately, I have some moving space for making a kind of a small experiment and give chance to 4 or 5 foreign bands per year to put them on smaller stages and to show them to the audience. This is a way which can be developed, and I think this is a way how to open people's eyes. But I think still the majority of the road is still above us.
Well, this doesn't count only from Hungary. It's the same here too, and in many other countries. You know.
Yeah, of course.
People invest more in Red Bull and vodka instead of €10 for a show.
Yeah, I think with Sziget we're in a bit of a different situation, as we're a Hungarian festival, but like half of our audience is international, coming from all over Europe, all over the world basically. So the way we approach the question of bringing talent or up and coming bands is also a bit different, because it's not just let's say a donation to the band that we offer them a platform, but it's also in our interest. As let's say we bring an up-and-coming German band, we have a lot of German people at the festival, so it's also in our own interest to curate these bands a bit. So we have a stage that is mainly, like the main concept for it is to give a platform to these bands, starting from like small scale. Starting to get into showcase festivals type of size to bands that are already well established in their own countries, but maybe not really known outside of it for any reason. Let's say they're German and they sing in German or they rap in German, which wouldn't really be necessarily appealing outside of the German-speaking territories. But this way we can give them a chance to have a nice crowd as well, because there's a lot of German-speaking people at the festival, but also be able to connect to a lot of international people at the same time. So so basically we have a whole stage around this concept. We have a lot of local partners all over Europe doing our promotion and marketing, where they also do talent shows locally, which is of course also a tool for them to include into their communication and highlight how the festival is. Although it's international, it's also very local, even for the people who come from abroad. So yeah, this is a wide variety of how we're trying to manage this question.
But actually, there are more and more very interesting bands are planning Budapest in their routings, and I'm always very surprised that even me, who I'm working in this business, and I'm always looking for the new. I'm always surprised that, for example, when I go to A38, and then there's a band who's gonna play on the terrace and like kind of like the second stage of the ship, and like there are some gigs when I just went there and I thought it's gonna be me and like maybe 15 other people, because like, and you have to realize that the audience has also got more and more interested in new music. So I think because of this, it's now I think it's even easier to jump in the Hungarian market than like it was even 2, 3, 4 years ago. So.
But I think one of the main accelerators of this process are the festivals of that kind, which you were also running. So these so-called boutique festivals, or I don't know what's these festivals like the Bánkitó, like the Colorado, are doing away. I mean, so they are one of the main accelerators of this process. So for that audience, they are showing up something. Which is also which can result in a development of being open to new music.
So can we say that it's some sort of a strategy as well for INES to enter the Hungarian market, to try to position their music for festivals, then let them circulate in venues of Budapest and then outside of Budapest?
Yeah, but it's always very hard to, as a first step, to be at a festival. I think you have to be lucky that like the promoter has to walk by at your show and like realize that, oh, I want this band. So.
Or you have to be really hardworking
Mm-hmm.
and be at every place where there's a chance of a promoter to see you, and then. You know.
Yeah, I mean, because usually the first step is not a festival show for a band in a foreign country, but. Yeah, I think there's no recipe, but
Yeah.
actually the sad thing is that small venues of Budapest are just actually closing down. Or that I think there were, I don't know, 8 venues 3 years ago, and now we have I don't know maybe half of it. So actually the bands who just start playing music, it's they just don't really have the place where they can bring the audience. And even for bands from abroad who could only do like 50 or 100 people in an audience, it's just very hard for them at the moment to find a place to come to Budapest, because or even not Budapest but like Hungary. So I mean, maybe then the first step is a festival.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is what I wanted to say. With this happening at the same time, I think this is could be a new good strategy to try and enter into the market, because you get a lot of exposure that you wouldn't really get normally, and it's also for a club promoter. Then it's a good, touching point to see that, oh, they already played here. There's probably some awareness for the band already, and then it's easier to bring them back for maybe even a somewhat bigger venue.
And as all of you mentioned some sort of the challenges you're facing basically about the market itself, can you also show us some inspirations that are basically just helping you to seeking for new solutions, or basically how you think that it makes it easier for you to bring over values for your daily job or for the mission you're handling?
Well, we working as a collecting society, we were just even talking about that while coming here, that we are a bit separate from the industry itself. So we have different problems. That it's also a responsibility on our side, how to invest into the future, because this is probably where we can really help. Actually, we do have a project together with the Finnish and French Collecting Society, and also 3 universities, which is called Future Songwriting, and it is a Finland-based project about music education for very young children. And the idea was that with modern technology, you can give a kind of emotional feeling for the children, that I can write music just as I can draw a picture on a paper. I can write music, And this was something that I was just so very enthusiastic about. And well, then I had some difficult times with our, I would say, serious music industry, because when we are talking about the difficulties of the popular music industry in Hungary, I would say that there is a parallel serious music industry which is flourishing, which has always been flourishing. And I would say that it's a very big problem of the Hungarian music scene, that popular music has always been seen by the ruling serious music people as a kind of second-hand good or something like that we shouldn't care so much about. And this is what we see on the other side when we are talking about audiences and about how many people are actually going to a concert there. So it's very, very difficult from this side. But well, we are looking into the future. We have this conference about songwriting, because we realize that there is something that we should give to the songwriters, to the starting songwriters, how they can become better at songwriting, how they can become more successful with that, and not only talking about royalties and copyrights. We can still do that, of course, but to help them. So a kind of songwriting development program that we started. Of course, we will only see the fruits of that like 10 years later or something like that, but we started, and I think that we are on the right track there.
Do you have any inspirations or international collaborations that helping you to shape your plans about positioning your job?
I think for me, in the last two years, the biggest inspiration was the result of starting the So Far series in Debrecen. You probably know this format because it's a very, very international thing. Now existing in more than 400 cities around the world, and I was very at the same time I was very, very motivated and also very, very skeptic about this when we started it. So for me it was a kind of an issue whether we will be able to bring audience to shows where people simply don't know who the performer will be. And by now we have reached a situation, we reached a status that we have more than 500 email addresses in our city database, which means that there were in a city of 200,000, we had more than 500 persons who were open enough to registrate and to come to at least one So Far show to see musicians which they didn't formally know at all. So it means that the openness is existing in the city, and in these very, very narrow but still very good platform, we had the chance to show them even international artists, because in the last 2 years we had, I think, 7 or 8 international artists. But we have to know that there's very, very little money in it. But it's not about money, it's about music, it's about completely unknown European musicians who just come for fun, who just come to play for the happiness, for doing music to different people around the world. And the audience is very, very open, and I think so they are coming back again and again. They are following. I think it's a very, very important inspiration for myself.
For me, personally, I think the inspiration is actually the festival itself. So if you're spending your whole year working on something, and let's say at my previous job, I didn't really see, the benefits of my work like this. I mean, it could be a couple of more times a year, but at least once a year I see, what actually happens and what all the work is worth, and the way this is inspiration for like challenges I see is that I think that the festival is really unique, and the way it's inspiring is that I see that the people there are having a really great time each time they come. But since it's quite different from your normal Western European festival, in a lot of aspects, it's really hard to explain to the people. It's really hard to make them to come, to make the commitment to come for 7 days in Budapest. Spend quite a nice amount of money, even though if you break it down by days, it's not that expensive. But I mean, it's 7 days, so you still have to have that sort of budget. And yeah, so I'm not worried if the people coming are going to have a good time or not, because I'm pretty sure they will. But the challenge is to make them understand, to get them over that tipping point to come to make the decision. And this is a lot of work, like a long work, and it's a long-term process. There's a lot of word of mouth is what we rely upon heavily, and for that you always need to bring new people, bring the old ones back, have them talk to each other, tell the tales of how great a party it was, or how they came to see Ed Sheeran but ended up seeing some singer-songwriter on a small stage in some corner that they liked even more. So I guess that's where your inspiration is coming from.
As I mentioned in the beginning, that I'm not only a festival booker, but I'm also managing bands. And I think my main inspiration is, because booking a festival is of course you have to find the right artist, but basically you pay the money and they're gonna come. It's sometimes it's not happening like this, but it's
come.
but like comparing to being a manager of a Hungarian band, it's which is I think way harder. And as I have experience from different parts of the music business, as a festival promoter, venue promoter, it's but I'm coming from the underground, and I really love the buzz which is going in the underground in the moment, and all the bands are just helping each others, and everyone is in contact, sharing experiences and stuff. And my inspiration is being in different parts of the music business, get as much experience as I can, and I want to keep these underground bands motivated, that if they just keep working hard, then they can reach anything now, also in Europe or the world, because the quality they have. And how I can motivate them is putting on good stages outside the festival, but as I'm traveling a lot to showcase festivals and talking to different bands and promoters, I always feel that all the bands who have any question, I really want to be the guy who these bands can come and ask, and I hope I can ask their questions. So I just feel I want to motivate the Hungarian underground scene, which is that's my main inspiration, I would say.
May I add one additional thing which is very strongly connected to the thing what Sasa said, that it's also, I think, very inspirational, at least for me, myself, is that in the last few years the whole scene, the whole profession, if I can say this, have become significantly of a stronger network. So communication in between or among the play rollers of the market has grown in a very, very significant way. So it's a much stronger community now, I think, either on a national level or an international level as well. So the presence of the Hungarian play rollers at the international market, on showcase festivals, on professional events is much stronger now, but also the communication between different people, even dealing with mainstream acts, underground acts, doing different types of work in the music industry. This level of communication is, I think, much better now, and for me it's like a big knowledge exchange platform, which is very, very inspirational.
And these bands, mainly thanks to HOTS, the export office, like Dávid, it's they can go to showcase festival in the last 5 years. Many Hungarian bands went to the main showcase festivals, and I just realized that whenever one band is coming back, just sharing the experience with the others, that maybe it's good if you book your band on the first day, because like and this venue because that's where all the people are coming and meet like the big professionals and stuff. And like I just feel like this band just started to chat and share experience with each others, which I think it's yeah, I really enjoying being the part of Hungarian underground. And like I have an English friend who always said he actually the guy
Rob.
Ben,
sorry, yeah,
who just
they all met him.
who just came to Hungary and he feels like that actually he's a super talented musician, but it's very hard for him to break through in England. And then I was always keep inviting him to Budapest, and I felt like that he would like to move here because he never experienced something like this in London, that musicians are getting together like this. And yeah, but what you also have to know, I think, about Hungarian music business is as we don't have as many good bands as maybe the UK have, so it's like sometimes if you're a bit better than average, you still can have like a good kind of audience. Maybe you wouldn't be, no one would see you in the UK, but like and this guy from the UK just came and said that this is amazing, and like he would like to move here because like nothing like this is happening in the UK as he experienced it in Budapest.
Otherwise, I think the size of the country and the size of the market is at the same time is an advantage and a disadvantage as well. So it's, of course, it's a disadvantage when we are trying to promote big international acts, but also it can be an advantage when it comes to networking and when it comes to the friendship between the musicians and the professionals.
I think we have time for one last question, which is basically about publicity itself, because in my opinion that could be also an interesting topic for anyone in this conference. Is which are the key platforms you would like to suggest for basically foreign acts to reach out in media? What's your opinion on the current state of the streaming facilities, basically radio, television? What kind of solutions do you see, or what kind of alternative routes can you suggest for anyone who would like to enter the Hungarian market with an act?
Well, it's everything is becoming very much online focused, but there is nothing really specific probably in Hungary. As I mentioned, YouTube seems to be a channel for musicians that is a must, which is a quite silly situation actually, because we know that how much YouTube pays for the plays, and compared to like Spotify or something like that, it's really pennies. So it's a difficult situation from this point of view, but at least the picture is quite clear. I mean, everyone has to be there on YouTube. That's something very important for them, and they use very much all these platforms. Like, you know, Twitter is somehow not active. I don't know why, but Facebook and Instagram is always there. So well, I would say that the other factor here is that there are so-called information bubbles, and it means that you can be successful in a bubble, and probably we don't even know about that. I saw once a manga conference in Budapest with lots of people there, and I just didn't know what the manga was. Never mind. So that can be an advantage and a disadvantage again. Like you have to find your own audience there. Well, from this point of view, I would say there's nothing special in Hungary. You do it the same way as you do it all over the world.
I think a good trend I've seen, or at least how I perceive it, is that online media, and especially online music media, as well in the last couple of years, has also started to report on smaller bands, international ones that come to festivals, come to shows. So it might be, you know, a good way to support your show locally is to try and get into these online medias, which there's a handful, I think, that are relevant, and for some reason they started to actually care about these type of things that I haven't really seen before. So that might be a good direction, I think.
Yeah.
So for example, when I want to promote our bands internationally, I'm just always thinking about, we already spent a lot of money on PR, but I always felt like just like buying a PR pack and and just get articles at small magazines, they just don't really help anymore. I think there's not really print magazines, and I think the only thing what would move a band forward would be like Pitchfork, Enemy, or like magazines like this. I mean, it's very good that we have the small magazines as well, but I mean, if you want to break through in Hungary, we don't really have small magazines anymore. The radio, if I can say, is not supportive at all, none of them. And for the underground, actually, I'm talking about my scene. And I think the word of mouth in the scene I'm working with is still the strongest power if you want to spread the news. It's just like, as I said, the scene, they're very much together. If they see something good, they just keep telling to each other. So I think you want to, like, step 1 to step 2 is going to be word of mouth. I think there's, if you want to come to Hungary with a band, I think just don't expect too much from media support. That's what I can say.
If we take a look at the countryside outside Budapest, it's, I think, a general commonplace that in those few cities which have a more or less lively music scene outside Budapest, you always find 1, 2, or 3 crazy people who are personally working till death on keeping the vibe alive. And I think the best way is to use these people, use these people as local, I don't know, trendsetters or opinion makers. So the best situation is when these people have the ability to find that 100, 200, I don't know how many committed people in their own cities, and who listen to this person's opinion. And if this person says that I booked a concert, I invited a band from, I don't know, Estonia, and this will be good, then people will come. So I think it's even more important not to rely on the media, not to rely on the press in cities outside Budapest, but to rely on people, like on those few people like this.
I think we have about 5 more minutes, so if you would have any questions, feel free to ask our panelists. But for sure, if not, I totally understand it as well. We wanted to use this opportunity basically to give you some sort of an insight on both levels, on club levels, festival levels, basically the media. We had a brief chat before the panel that might be the most helpful, especially that we're really proud to be at Waves Vienna.
We didn't really speak about bands or names. What is your opinion? Who is like the next shooting and big ticket seller from the Hungarian side? Do you have any tips for us which we should look out
Yes,
for?
of course.
One of the
Which
the
of your
artists
bands?
which I met in Romania was Mr. Habashi.
Okay.
You're laughing yourself off. But it was very interesting to meet him because he's a very unique example for self-PR and how actually with music you think you cannot even make a week's living. He's really successful, you know, and we don't want to judge him on his music, but I think this is a typical example for bands in from Eastern European countries who really, they want to make it, they work so hard and so professional and so perfect that we actually can, from the Austrian side, for example, we have to look. But what is your tip? Secrets.
Everyone is looking at you.
So I think there are many good bands. Also, I would say the band called Bohemian Betyars, who are kind of playing folk punk music, and they never really worked with management and stuff. Those guys, like 7 guys, living together since 10 years, and just traveling all around the world and playing music, like huge festivals, also in Asia and also in Spain. I think they're amazing. But actually, I mean, I really believe in 2 of those bands I work with who sing in English. Like for example, Platon Karateev. They got, with the first album they wrote, it got more than 3 million streams on Spotify, and it mainly comes from Germany, USA, and UK. But like, and then we are trying to enter those markets. I mean, we are focusing in Germany at the moment. It's getting better and better, but it's like, it's not very easy to get fan engagement from Spotify listeners to come through your social media. So it's not very easy to get in touch with those people who just listen to your music on Spotify. But I think it's they are very, very promising acts. I mean, a very promising act. But I mean, I don't want to talk about my own band. It's like, it's bullshit. But it's like, you know, it's when I start working with the band, it's because I really believe that they're the best. So I mean, it's, yeah, that's why I would say the bands I work with. The other one is Middle Misread, who's playing psych rock. But I really want you to mention other bands as well, because like,
No, I think it's very hard to tell. It's always a big question whether which is the better way for an upcoming Hungarian band if they want to enter the international market. But in my opinion, I always see something that the best chance is for those who are able to somehow mix something into their music from this very special, I don't know, Eastern European way of thinking, way of living. So some special taste is given to the music. It makes the chances for those bands a bit better. And I think that's one of the secrets of the Bohemian Betyars, who are dealing with this. But also, it's very, very hard to name one band, but if we just take a snapshot on the Qualitons, who will play tomorrow here, I think. It's just one very personal experience. They were the first ever Hungarian band who've been invited to the Key EXP. They did a live video recording at the Key EXP studios in Seattle, which is, I think, it was one of the most important moments of Hungarian music export in the last decades. And it's okay, it's one thing, but I was listening to the radio show live then, and when they started to play the first song, which was a Hungarian song, sang in, otherwise all of their songs are in English. But this song was in Hungarian. This song was a cover version of a Hungarian progressive rock song from the 70s, which is based on a Hungarian folk song. So it had a very, very, yeah. So there's an original Hungarian folk song. There was a band called Keks, interesting, in the 70s, who covered, or not covered, but made an adaptation of this. And the Qualitons covered this song. And they sang in the Key EXP in Hungarian, which had this really special Eastern European taste. The tune, the sound itself is somehow different from the Anglo-Saxon tradition. And for me, it was quite a very, I don't know, hátborzongató. So it was a really, really extra moment for me to hear this on a cultic American radio station. I think the Qualitons has the potential to do something on the international market.
I'm not sure if anyone saw the band called Mayberry and Sunsclots yesterday.
I saw.
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe that they're amazing.
I was pretty impressed actually. First song, straight out.
I always like to put some emphasis or some spotlight on the songwriters as well, because we have some very talented young songwriters and music producers. Just to mention one girl and one boy, it's Kata Kozma, who has actually learned in the Berkeley in the US. She's very talented. She works with lots of international bands, performers, and probably a boy is Závodi. That's his artist name, actually his family name as well. So he's also very talented. He's also a performer, and he's working with lots of acts as a music producer. So I think that they both can do quite well internationally as well.
Well, I'm really curious about your opinion as well, because actually I think you see the whole picture.
Yeah, but as my personal opinion, I always go to desperate solutions. I'm really into those emerging talents who are coming from basically the hardcore punk and metal scene, because I'm also got socialized on that, but I can't say it out loud publicly because I'm representing the export office. But at the same time, I'm quite proud on the guys of Harm, because they got nominated for the Music Moves Europe Talent Awards, and we didn't have any nominations in 13 years by now. The last one was for Heaven Street 7 at Midem. And it was really a breakthrough for all of us, because they are a young, motivated, talented band. They played in 18 countries and they exist for less than 2 years by now. They released only one EP and it got released by Victory Records, which is basically one of the biggest genre-specific US labels. They got published by Sony. So on their genre, they are getting quite a great focus with the monthly Spotify listener count on 70,000 people or something like that. So it can be a game changer on that scene, and I'm really proud of them. But obviously it's really hard to position metal, because the majority of the Hungarian people, I guess they are afraid of the fact that we're quite good on suffering on music. And at the same time, I think it's an advantage, because we also have also a past, as it's easier for us to use this as the part of our self-expression, to get rid of all of the trauma and everything that we feel desperate. But I can say it as the export office, I say it as Dávid.
And we haven't even mentioned the Bloomy Sunday song, which is somehow the real root of this depressive way of self-expression.
Yeah, but I'm quite okay with that.
Just one more thing I wanted to ask, because I totally agree with the guys on that it's a really great advantage if you have something like unique that is representative of your country or your musical heritage that you incorporate into your music, but like the Bohemian Betters do. But I also think it's if you're lucky enough to find a scene, find a niche that is well organized, very good underground, network all over Europe, which is also the case for those guys. Speed folk punk is never going to be mainstream pop radio airplay, but they get around with this network and play in front of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people in Spain or in Asia, and maybe someone else who also in quite a niche market, but is quite successful. This is a guy called Devil's Trade, very underground. Is a metal singer originally playing folk music, but very doomy. Something that really fits into one to one scene, and then you can slowly start building your network and then get out on your own.
Yeah, it's good to mention that, and I guess it has to be some sort of a final sentence because we run out of time. But they will also announce their new label, because they will get signed to one of the biggest European labels in this year later on. But it's one of the most heartbreaking experiences if you're able to see them live.
And only one sentence to add. I think just to have a very, very quite full picture. I think we should not go home without mentioning the Hungarian world music scene, which has a very unique but very strong export potential, and there are lots of successes in the last two decades. I mean, there are lots of acts like Romango and Lajkó Félix and Besodrom touring around the world, or Söndörgő, or I don't know, and so on and so on. So I think it's also a very important slice of the Hungarian music export movement.
Yeah. This is a good question. We're talking about this the last. It feels good to talk about this band. They're very good.
So thank you for your time. Really appreciate it, and see you tomorrow at the Hungarian reception at Collegium Hungarian.
And also the Hungarian bands.
And Hungarian bands, they will play tomorrow as well. Tonight we don't have Hungarian.
Tonight? Don't have?
No.
Ma nincs?
Yesterday and tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.